While the research shows the benefits of enhanced physical education on student learning, health, and behavior, PE teachers and school health advocates often find themselves having to make the case for why daily physical education is important. As we've discussed in previous modules, building leadership commitment is a key factor in the success and sustainability of a PE program in a district or school. So how do we develop effective messages related to physical education in schools? In order to effectively communicate any message, you must first identify your audience. Who are you trying to reach? Understanding your audience's key values and motivations is critical to developing an effective message that will resonate with them. Focus groups, surveys, and informational interviews are effective methods to identify values and motivations. With your audience's motivations in mind, select your primary message. For example, if your audience is concerned with improving academic test scores, providing a message about how PE relates to improved learning might be a good fit. If they are motivated by students' behaviors and developmental outcomes, the message should highlight that research. It is important to have no more than 2 or 3 main points that you want to communicate. Be clear and write them down so they are etched in your memory. For each message, use examples of real students or teachers who have benefited from enhanced PE. This will help your audience relate more to your message and remember your key points. Now, let's talk about a few different audiences you may have to consider. School leaders are strongly influenced by the priorities and needs of their students, parents, and the community. They are accountable to the school board, which sets policies and budgets and establishes a vision for the district. School leaders also receive guidance on positions to assume on new proposals and work to comply with state laws and requirements from their professional associations. School leaders face many competing concerns. The priorities of the school board, laws and requirements, student performance, and extenuating circumstances like a power outage can all consume their time. School leaders listen to their school board, but they also listen to engaged community members. Leaders can be engaged directly by PE advocates, but keep in mind they are very busy and can be hard to reach. Cultivating community champions like parents might be more effective at getting through already existing communication channels. And offering resources that help with enhancing physical education may also spark the interest of school leaders. What motivates parents, students, and community members? This varies by community, and outreach to engage community members is important both in message development and in delivering the message. Their primary concerns might not be what you think. For example, all parents want their kids to be healthy, but in some communities, basic needs around safety or meeting graduation requirements may be a bigger concern than having their kids in regularly scheduled PE. Parents and community members can be engaged through questions at regular school and community events or through polls and focus groups. It's important to note when engaging a community to get new perspectives, you need to make sure your messages and materials are culturally relevant. Once you have identified the parents and community's motivations and needs, craft your message to highlight the benefits of PE that align with their needs. Elected officials are primarily concerned with the needs of constituents in their districts. As such, policymakers listen to their constituents. They are also informed by policy experts and special interest groups, but public policy changes often come at the demands for the public. So the more people demanding changes for PE, the more likely legislators are to listen and act. So how do you tell a good story? Authentic and personal ones are the most powerful. If you just say, research shows PE is associated with improved classroom behavior, it might not be as memorable. If you say, my son's school scheduled PE before math and he tells me it gives him a lot of energy and focus for the rest of the day, it adds a human element. And make sure to practice. You want your spokesperson to be comfortable telling their story so they can stay on message, be concise, and won't forget important parts if they get nervous. Also, be prepared to pivot if needed. Despite your best preparation, a conversation with the decision maker might veer in a different direction and get away from your key message. In that case, you'll want to pivot back to what you want to talk about. Pivoting is turning conversation in another direction. So how do you pivot? First, acknowledge what the speaker said. Then, use a bridge statement to go back in the direction you want to go. And finally, deliver your message. Some examples of bridge statements include, that's a possibility, but what we're calling for is, or that's one view, but we need to look at how this fits into the bigger picture, or that is an issue, but what the public is most concerned about is. So now you know your audience and their motivation, and you are ready to deliver a good message. In Illinois, a coalition of health and school wellness advocates worked to develop a PE messaging campaign aimed primarily at reaching school leaders and policymakers. We use these messages in our ongoing advocacy efforts, which include action alerts and fact sheets about specific initiatives, communications to key audiences, and educational activities like webinars and workshops. Let's get into our key messages. We knew that school leaders and policymakers were most interested in strong academic outcomes and on building social-emotional skills. Luckily, we also knew that parents were interested in these outcomes, so we knew this message would resonate with them all. So the message you see on the screen was an overarching message that appealed to all our primary audiences, including policymakers, school leaders, and parents. This message highlights the value of PE as it relates to in-class performance, grades, and test scores. We know this argument works well for everyone: parents, school leaders, and decision makers. We know social-emotional learning is a critical issue schools are working to address, so we created a message that would frame PE within social-emotional learning outcomes as well. Equity was another important issue for many Illinois legislators and parents, so while this message is primarily focused on social-emotional learning, it also highlights the need for all students to be provided with PE. Lifetime fitness is another compelling theme that resonated with parents. After all, schools and parents are concerned with building a foundation of lifetime success for students beyond their kindergarten through 12th grade education. This works well for parents and also for other school health partner organizations. In summary, you want to determine who it is you plan to communicate with, what their motivations and values are, and then craft a message that aligns with those values.